everyone, welcome to Bezels Expanded. I filmed this project 2 years ago. There's some really cool techniques in here that I just love and I think you guys are gonna enjoy. I actually start with like medium stones in here, but just keep in mind you can bump them down small or you can use larger stones, whatever you prefer. And I think it'll be really fun this is the second part after how to set a rosecut gem. And that video shows you tools and how to set up your nomadic silversmithing station. So if you haven't watched that yet, you might want to do that one first and then hop over here. And I think you're really gonna love the techniques in here. Please subscribe if you haven't yet. Hello everyone, welcome to the course. Welcome to the first segment of the course. I want to show you a number of different ways how to expand your bezel making, how to move into really combining different types of filigree wires, and it'll be really exciting. You're gonna need this month. Get into your studio 2 to 3 times a week, and I am wearing what I feel is the theme of what we're doing here. So I'm gonna be really, what I like to do is teach technique. So I'm gonna be showing you a couple exact pieces. My exact pieces I'm showing you are this ring right there, and this is actually using double bezel wire and doing a piece that hangs horizontally and can take up a lot of room. Or, this is the same thing too, these horizontal double bezel building pieces, I'll call them. And just really expanding into, just different directions. So also it's using filigree wire this time around. I have so much to do with bezel making, and I'm gonna show you the jeweler saw and different things like that, really I'm not gonna be making bangles this section, but some of them I'm doing bangles. These I'm just gonna focus on these couple pieces here. This piece right here really uses the whole Bezels Expanded, which is what this chapter is. Here's some of the stones. So what I want to say is here, the tool that I'm introducing in this segment is a jeweler saw. So many times I can get away from just using the snips and the tin snips and cut around, if they're exact. Because I'm cutting around bezel wire and just different types of shapes, you really want to think about a jeweler saw. The cool thing is these jeweler saws are not expensive. This is $20. These are the standard traditional jeweler saws, and these I used for 100 years, just the regular $20 jeweler saw. I just bumped up into, this is it's a little bit more sophisticated. The reason I jumped up into this jeweler saw is that I travel a lot, and when I throw my jeweler saw in, the frame doesn't bend at all. So here's the 3 different sizes I want to show you with the standard. This one is the shortest that there is with the jeweler saw. I'm going to show you, I'm just going to go over these now, but I will show you how to use a jeweler saw. Use about 10-15 minutes in here in a segment, but this one you can adjust here, and this one actually you won't get as much bend to it. And then there's the second size in, which is this one. You can see the difference in the frame. And then the third size in is this really long one here. So you can see the difference. Now, why? Because this is for these tiny little pieces of jewelry. Your metal can only go back as far as your piece does. So if you're, I'm not going to be able to get to the end of this piece here because the end will. So if I was working with a piece like this medium frame is nice to use. You don't have as much control. So the bigger that the bigger frame that you get, the less control that you have. So I'll show you those later. I'm going to show you on mine, but you guys can see we have these tools here. Okay, cool. In this chapter, in this module, I am going to be showing you a traditional ring band. So, this is just a heavier weight. When you're doing ring bands, you want to use a little heavier, heftier, so they feel good on your hand, they stay on your hand. I like you doing adjustable ring bands, so I'll show you guys that. This is going to be the exciting one because I want to show you some filigree. That's going to be so much fun to work with. There's all kinds of filigree, but filigree is much more fragile because you can see that these points up here are probably like a 38 gauge. Or 32. So you really hardly can put heat on these very ends for your piece to stay in good shape. And these two. So the filigree, we're going to work in a whole different animal. If you have any trouble along the way, just jump back into Alchemy of Soldering and you'll get everything down. We're going to start, and I also am going to show you a little heftier gauge, a 12 gauge, which is a little heftier just to make a bail with the heftier to show you something different. Every single module, I'm going to be introducing something different to show you guys just what you can do with all of this, and then have a lot of eye candy here too. So this is just what I wanted to say. I dressed up for you guys today. I wore all my layers that I have on, and that's pretty much all I have to say. Now I'm going to show you, so let's go do. Okay, hey you guys, as you know, I'm just gonna work with sterling silver through here. If you really, there's some people that love working with copper and bronze, or even brass would be perfectly fine. And if you do, there's copper sheet, there's bronze sheet, use a jeweler's grade bronze wire if you're gonna do bronze, and copper is just copper, that's all. Here also, there's a link for this, but here is some brass filigree wire. So as long as we're talking about filigree, you know you can find the kind of filigree wire that you want in a brass. So to start with, here's my sheet metal. These are the two stones that I'm working with today. And I'm gonna start with building this piece right there, but I'm gonna use a lot of filigree. Okay, so this is my filigree wire that I have here. The way you make a bezel is going to be the same way. I'm gonna put this off to the side. I actually have this butted right up here so it won't do a lot of spinning and turning. I just get it started. I have a nice straight edge. If I didn't, I could get over here and file my edge. I think I must have already done this ahead of time. Boy, it really looks like a gorgeous edge on there. So if I have a stone that is a little bit rocky, you know, it's really nice to introduce the gems. This is an amethyst, but of course you can use any of the stones that you saw over there. And I am gonna work, this is a little stickier than sliding on the silver. So I'm gonna work this piece over here the same way as before and make a bezel. And this is still the medium size. When you get into large or small, you're always gonna have a little bit more work, but the medium size, as you guys are kind of getting started in this sequence, and then I'm just gonna mark it off right there, pretty close. That looks like it's gonna be a beautiful fit. So any of the large stones and small stones is something special. So it's nice to just get warmed up with this size. I have it marked here. I'm going right in between. I really love this, this bezel. I love this filigree wire. Okay, I'm gonna actually hit it a couple times with the file. I'm gonna hit this filigree. You have to be very gentle with filigree. You do not want this to fall apart. I was telling you guys that basically it's just wire built up upon itself. When I was in Indonesia, we actually built our own filigree wire, which is crazy, right? But you know, there's other countries when you don't have Rio Grande, you really get a good understanding of how to build all of this. So this would just be two pieces of like a 20 gauge wire with a flattened beaded wire, and then this crown on top of it wire. So this looks like it is going to be a beautiful fit. Ah, I love it when that happens. Okay, let me get my marker. Because it is such a beautiful fit, I'm not done fitting it, but because it is, I really need to make sure that it's blackened over here. Okay, and remember I told you guys, once you get it around, I want to kind of pinch it with my pliers and make sure everything, oh, you know what, I didn't even check it around again. I have to check it around and make sure it's a good fit. It's a little bit big, but that's okay. I know I've told you guys, I like mine just a hair. I don't have to worry about the size of it right now. So again, I'm gonna get in. I did have a perfect fit, but it's nice to bust things up so you guys can see that I can do it again if I need to. Not just a one-trick pony here. Okay, there we go. Okay, so I know you guys saw how to do this, but this is with filigree. So I am going to be very careful to stay away from the upper part. So I'm just warming this up for now. There we go, nice and warm. And again, I always want to use my hard solder, just a tiny little slice of hard solder in the exact right place. That's all. Tiny little slice exactly in the right place. Okay. So that's all. You can see actually it's closer to the crown. I'm gonna want to put my flame pretty low. So this should just be like an inch of flame. Yep, a little bit over an inch, but you don't need much. Okay. Now again, get my pick warmed up so it can participate. If I have to move over that solder, elbows on the table, and I'm just gonna get in. I'm really hitting the board right here. You can see where it's heating up. And I'm really doing 95% right on the board in front of it. And I'm hardly going on the inside with this one. Yep, looks like, oh, see, it really couldn't jump. So I might have to grab another piece. Sometimes what I'll do, that actually flowed on the top of my piece, if you guys saw that, where the crown is, but it didn't really get down by the band. So in that case, I'm gonna put one more little piece up here. You know, I like when things like this happen because you guys can see it's not always like a 1 + 1 is 2. Sometimes you have to get in and do your piece again. I've had people come up and say, oh my gosh, my piece didn't work. And then it's like, didn't for any of us. You just have to go in and work your piece a little bit. So I'm just going in a tiny bit, but I am, there we go. Beautiful. Okay. Remember, I put mine right into the flux. Okay. Looks good. I'm gonna have to file off some of this here. There's a little bit more solder and a little bit of solder on the outside, but that's okay. Let me get this clean. Get my file. And just get the edge of this at the bottom right here. Get a little bit of that solder off. Chances are the solder will run a little and get set into place, but clean up as much as you can right now. And I'm gonna pull my piece back up again. I have it flipped over so I can get my stone fit. I know my bezel looks dirty, but this will be good. Okay, so remember, now this is a stone where it makes a difference what side is up or down. And I like that I'm showing you a little bit more sophistication step by step, because if I were to set this upside down, because it's a rocking stone, when I put it back in, it's gonna be backwards. This one, the shape is important. So what I need to do is I'm gonna get my pliers and kind of round off the top, and I need to get this set in. I'm gonna show you a different type of setting too, which will be really fun. So this definitely is the next step, you know, the next step in working bezels of different kinds of stones. And this is called a rosecut stone. And you really want to make sure that there, that's a nice fit. Now I want to make sure I can push it in from the top, because if I can push it in from the top, that's all I need to do. So you can see I left it a tiny bit larger, but it is a perfect fit once I get everything soldered and put together. It's going to be gorgeous, and that'll just pop right out. So we're good to go. I'll show you an interesting way to set this later. Okay, now I'm gonna keep this in because remember I have to I have to polish off the top of my solder here, or the bottom of here. It's dirty, needs a little bit of work. I have to be very careful not to scratch up this stone, but I do like having this stone to hold it in place. So my stone isn't touching. See how it's raised? So I'm kind of not touching it. Or you can take it off and then just reshape it again. I just go in a circular motion, pretty abrasive, until the bottom gets nice and silvery. That means it's clean enough. I don't have to put it in the pickle. It actually is clean enough on the bottom. And as long as it's gonna hit flush, I'll be in good shape. So, looks beautiful, good. So pop it out the top because that's all I really need. And, ooh, look at how nice and flush that is. Don't worry about it. Remember again, if there's a little bit of air in between here, there's a tiny bit of space right inside there. This will be enough. You can see a little bit there, but don't worry about it. This will be enough just to relax your piece and get it put into place. I'm really just, you know, even though at different times as you go and get better and better, you're gonna be able to get your bezel perfect. It'll just come with time. But in the meantime, I just want you to know, don't worry about it because everything will work its way out once the heat gets set. So, I'm gonna get this put down. The reason I'm putting this in the center is, remember, I'm building out from here. I'm building a couple different directions. So plus one of the last modules in here is actually called using your scrap. So I never mind having scrap. I'm gonna keep this piece in the center and I'm gonna get this soldered down right now. And I think I'm gonna bump up to a heavier screen. Why not? I wanted to show you guys a heavier screen. You can see how I like working on the end because when I get in here, I can cover a lot more ground. So I'm gonna get in here on the end, get this piece flexed up really beautifully. I've got a lot more going on. Wherever there's flux, there's not gonna be fire scale and it'll be considered clean. So you could flex your whole piece if you wanted or just part of it. Sometimes I just flex the seam. That part doesn't really matter. Okay, let me get it warmed up. This is really, you know, one of the magical things that I kind of picked up when I was studying outside of the country, just with raw tools and working in, you know, in more of a raw way with different fluxes and different pickles that literally were just lemon juice and vinegar. But you know, this type of, once you heat up your piece, look at how easily I can get my solder. Some people feel they have to be a perfectionist about getting their solder all the way around evenly, equally. And I can tell you this, once the solder starts flowing, if there's flux there, it's just gonna follow all the way around your bezel. So even if I had 4 pieces on here, you just want them small enough is really this kind of the key, is to have them small enough and you don't want it on the outside. Now, I talked earlier about, you know, so yes, I just don't want a bunch of sloppy solder on the inside and I don't want to waste solder, but so in this case, I have it up against the wall. My piece is dry. This should be set up beautifully. Pick in hand, because either pick or paintbrush. And you can see a little bit of that air coming through. I'm not worried about it at all. So I'm gonna come in and just make sure things are dry. I actually like I can work better with my left hand than my right. Again, I've got a lot of silver and a heat sink working against me. So I'm really gonna heat this brick under here. That's exactly what I'm doing. I'm just heating up my fire brick. Getting it all warmed up. It was cold again because I took a little break in there. Heating up as much as I can. And as soon as I get this bottom part, the really nice part is getting up under my sheet metal now, and this is a 24 gauge. So I'm under my sheet metal and I'm just heating the screen. And if you could see the screen, see how nice and red that screen is? That's what I'm trying to do, is get my screen red. If you can't, you know, if you can't pick it up, you can just heat under there and, you know, just heat under. Remember, you can do so much heating before you even get to your piece. I have to be careful now because I'm working in the middle of my of my sheet metal, and I don't want to buckle my sheet metal, and it's only a 24 gauge, so I can get in the middle a little bit, but I want to be very, very careful when I'm going around my edges. Oop, there's a piece of solder. I don't want that to, ooh, see that beautiful flow? I don't want to buckle any of it or anywhere. There we go, see that? I promised you guys that it would really start flowing even if my piece wasn't even, and that's it. So I'm really going in with my flame that was a little bit more assertive. Really the places that I'm hitting with my flame is all around here. You can see you can see the fire marks on my sheet metal. This is really where I pointed my heat. And since it got heat, I'm banking on the heat just moving through osmosis and warming up the whole piece. If I sat on this piece too long, which I'll show you in another segment when I'm intentionally putting holes in the piece, in my silver, if I sat here too long, it would buckle it, and then I would have a lot of trouble with just with keeping my piece flush. You want this as straight as possible because I've got more layers going on here now. I need this sheet metal to be nice and clean. Okay, voila, step one. That's working with filigree, that's what you do. I wanna show you, I'm gonna move my screen over. I want to show you with filigree. So what I'm doing is I'm spreading my filigree decorative. I do a lot of my work this way. I actually did a whole series last year that went to Milan that was really kind of fitting, this bezel wire. So this is actually dead soft sterling silver. I'm gonna get some of these rings off to get in here and move this around. This is where you really need, I'm gonna push this back a little too. You really need some nice strong pliers for this. So I'm using my chain nose, and this is just some work that I actually started doing that is real exciting about you want to do elbows on the table. I'm trying to do this where you guys can see it too. But this is some of the work that when I was thinking, how can I use this bezel wire differently than what's out there? I love just the exploring of the technique and the work. So with the filigree wire, you can see I can start getting this fit around. I'm gonna really try to fit this as closely as possible, but truthfully, I'm gonna put another layer on top of here. So, it is a little difficult to bend. I am gonna get in here on the ends and really push these ends in beautifully. This other end is a little closer, so I can start farther away. And I wanna make sure I keep it down here and sized. This bezel wire wasn't really made to bend this way. This is just, hey, you have to explore with these materials, right, guys? Okay, so I'm just, if you get into you want to keep it flat, but if you get into a kink, you can always flatten it after you get it soldered together. So that's another cool thing about this bezel wire. Oh, look at that, I love it. I guess I've been doing this long enough where, I can kind of get it fit to size fairly easy, but you guys will too. So see that? We're getting there. Let me get this turned over into a circular shape so I can match it up. It's actually a little easier when it's a longer piece, rather than the exact same size, and it's hard to tell the size. A lot of these things that I do, I call the right brain silversmith, because really it's not traditional type of work that we're talking here. We're bending wires in different ways that aren't really so normal. Okay, so I have this laying on here. I can see where I need it to end, and I'm gonna go ahead and mark that. This is gonna have to be exact. So this needs to be, I'm gonna hit it about right here. And then I may have to cut the other part on a little bit of a slant. So let's take this off. And you guys can see on some of the pieces, I actually just do a half band around. Just sometimes if I have scrap silver, see, I'm gonna have a strange piece left here. And I will just, I'm gonna cut it at an angle. Pretty sure I'm gonna need this on an angle. There we go. Let's see, to match up, okay. There, I cut it at an angle. Look at how beautiful that is. Okay, I'm not gonna worry about flattening this yet. It's better to do it when I get this soldered together. And this actually looks like it is going to fit nicely. Well, you know where actually you can see where it might give me some trouble. Oh my gosh, even this part here is beautiful together, but you really want to make sure that your piece is matching and touching. And mine looks like it is, except for right here. I'm going to take off this little piece right here with just a tiny bit of the file right here. Is giving me a little bit of trouble. And be careful because this will take metal off quickly. Okay. So I have it spring loaded. I'm not worried about it being flat right at this second, unless it's going to give me trouble soldering it together. Oh, I had it. You know, it's frustrating when you have it so perfect a minute ago, you know, but it's good practice, guys. There we go. Okay, I'm going to solder it from the back because I don't want to get the front, you know, I don't want to ruin anything on the front. I want to keep everything intact and as beautiful as it looks. And I'm just going to heat this up. You can see now I'm on the board. I'm not on my screen. I don't want to be on the screen many times when I'm doing filigree because I don't want the ends of this piece or the front of it being damaged. When the screen heats up, it could actually, you know, maybe kind of collapse the front of your piece too. So you just want to be careful with using the screens. They get super hot. Okay, here's my torch. You can see I just have about 1 inch of a flame, very gentle. This is laying right on the surface. I'm going to heat up the whole piece just a tiny bit. And I'm working on the inside of this because the outside is so fragile. Now, actually, it doesn't look like I have. See how I have my solder just over to one side? You can actually take your solder and push it. So that's exactly what I did there. I pushed it over. And this solder, again, was a hard. And this solder, if it has to, I can use it when I am, you know, I can use it to help flow when I'm going to quench this piece, when I need this to flow on the whole piece. So this is quenched. I'm actually going to take this to my anvil, and here's actually my anvil here, my small one. I'm going to hit this very, very gently to flatten this out. I know this is a big rubber mallet, but you just really want to use a rubber mallet or a cowhide. Either one will work well to get it nice and flat. There we go. Okay. Let's see how this fits. Look at how pretty. Okay, I am going to get the wire that lays on top of this because this chapter is all about multiple layers. Now, obviously, it's getting ready to go in the pickle, but my pickle should be pretty quick. So first of all, I'm going to file this edge nice and straight, as I normally do with my file, and I am just going to lay this up close to my piece. And I really try to keep all of my endings in one place, all my solder joins in one place. It just kind of makes it a little bit easier. Okay, let me get this bent over. Yep, get a little closer. It makes it easier in measuring that. There you go. And see, I'm kind of pushing it from different directions so I can make sure it's going to stay in place. And then I get out my marker. Make a mark. There we go. I knew I had a little bit of room on the bottom. Did you see how I was putting that together? I had a little bit of room on the bottom, so this should be a really nice fit. This fit has to be beautiful because we're going to be able to see this fit. Okay. Get that exact. There we go. Try it out again. Oh, it's going to be beautiful. Oh my gosh, this is just going to fit. So, okay, I'm going to hit it with the file on the other side. This wire does pretty much have to be exact. It really will use up some room. If it's not, I mean, you'll find it expands a little bit. And then I'm going to get this piece into shape. It looks like it's going to fit beautifully. And before I solder this piece together, I'm going to drop this whole piece right into the pickle. Normally, when I'm in my studio, I'm working with 2 or 3 pieces at the same time. Some of them sit in the pickle longer. Here I'm focusing on building one piece at a time, so I try to find ways to make it a little quicker. Okay, again, I'm not on the screen, I'm right on the board. For bezel wire, I'm right on my soldering board. I'm warming it up. And then I just want a piece of hard, as you know, because I'm doing bezel wire, and that's hard. A lot of this is this repetition over again, but it really helps you to know your stuff. This piece is actually a pretty big one. You guys have been able, I would normally use it in my studio, but since I'm doing a class right now, I'm gonna really stick to the size that you need to have. Okay. Actually, this one you even can stick under. I'm gonna lay this under. The only problem with laying your solder underneath your wire, this wire can take it, it's pretty sturdy. Sometimes your piece gets hit more than your solder, so I'm gonna hit about right here and help lift that up a little bit. There we go. Voila. Voila. Now, hopefully when I dip this right, that was a hard, I dipped this right into the flux and it's pretty clean. So I'm gonna hit this with the mallet once, get it nice and flat. And then I'm gonna show you how I do some sweat soldering. And actually I'll start with this piece. It doesn't matter, I know it's not quite in the shape that I need it to be in, but I just put this into the flux and I'm gonna show you some sweat soldering. Sweat soldering is actually where I'm literally sweating solder or melting solder right onto the back side of my wire. And I will do this to the filigree too. Actually, maybe I'll do both of them at the same time. So let me pull this out. This is the front side of my filigree and that's the back side. They're both gonna be laying flat. Both of these pieces I'm gonna sweat solder on with a medium. So what that means is I've got my medium and both pieces, did I just put that in the flux? I don't think I did. Everything must be fluxed. Everybody must be fluxed. Okay, there we go. And warm it up a bit. Wire is sometimes a little tricky to get the solder to stay on the back side. You don't want to let your solder flow onto the front because if you do, your solder will, oh, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to lay some pieces on to here. And my other piece, I'm going to show you how I do this with the pick. Okay. So I want to make sure that I stay on the back side. I'm going to keep my pick in hand. I really want to stay away from the filigree ends. So I'm just going to bring solder around here. Onto the top. Get a little bit more. You don't, and I don't have to worry about putting too much on because it really is going to stay contained. This piece has to get out of here. I'm going to put some medium onto the table because for this wire, I'm going to show you, you can take your bigger pieces of solder that you might have cut accidentally larger, and I'm going to show you a pretty cool technique too. Okay, so dip in my flux because I need to participate. I need to get my solder completely flowing all over this. I don't need that hot of a heat. It's just one little filigree. So I'm gonna get in to the center. See, again, I'm working in this center part and kind of just letting it flow. I want my whole piece heated up equally so I can have flow happen. See that flow? Okay, now when it does start flowing, I can actually take my pick very gently and let it flow like this. So for me, soldering is two things. Soldering is this chemical flow of heat, and it also can be a physical one. If you can't get your solder around, you just push it with your, and so it's covered. I just pushed it with my pick. Oops, that's gonna be hot. Let's stick it in. Let's stick it in here for now. And sometimes this happens, guys. Just as part of life. Okay, this is fluxed. I'm gonna put this one to the side. Now, for this wire, it's a little trickier because how can I dangle it right onto these ends? I'm gonna let this get a little hotter. Oops, my fault. I'm gonna heat this up and I'm literally just, by heating this red, I can pick up bigger pieces like this and melt them into a ball. See that nice ball? And I'm just gonna lay it right onto my piece let the ball stay for a second, grab another one, get them onto here like this. Sometimes this is the easiest way to do it. Practice. This one will be harder. Some of them, like when you get into the beaded wires, they're a little bit more fragile. You saw how I used my pick and pushed it around on the last one. Some of these are a little bit more fragile. Okay, there we go. Now I'm just going to work on the inside, and hopefully this will just cover over the surface. There we go. Covered over. See that shine? That shine means that this has the medium solder that has flowed all over it. So I'm happy there too. Now, these are both pretty clean, even though they might look a little bit dirty, they're actually pretty clean. So let me get my other piece and we'll layer these up. They're gonna be ready to go. So ideally, the way that you saw me do this sweat solder is so ideal for this piece because it's not, my solder will stay contained. If you've ever been in a situation where you have a lot of solder flowing all over the place and making a mess, you're not gonna have that. It's pretty contained with this sweat soldering. So that's the good part. Look at how nicely that fit on. Now don't worry, you guys. Actually, I really like when things don't fit, but man, things are working out this time. So, okay. I mean, I like for you guys to also see me struggle because you guys are going to be struggling. Oh my gosh. Luckily I have to get flux under here. I totally forgot about it. Remember, I already have done this course before and people struggle, everybody struggled. Everybody had questions. There was a lot going on. So, for me, I'm showing it to you nice and easy. I'm trying to explain all the final details about getting this done. But look at how beautiful that is sitting. Okay. Now, I don't need any, I've got so much going on. It's going to be so nice and easy. I don't have to worry about dangling solder. I don't have to worry about dangling different wires. Voila, I'm ready to solder. Everything's on there. So this is nice and easy. Now this again is going to be pretty much an anneal. And by anneal, you'll learn a lot about annealing in the next chapter. But annealing is just heating up a piece evenly and in this case, from below. So again, even though my brick is a little bit, I have to grab some hair out of my face. Even though my brick has already been used a few times, I still really have to get in here and heat up the bottom. My filigree is going to be fragile until I have it married down onto my sheet metal. So you can see in this area where it's not really married down. Oh, you guys can see here, I have to water down my pickle again. We learned that, or my flux. I have to get that all watered down. You can see I'm using this heavier screen. And can you see under here? Look what I'm doing. I'm just bringing this to a red glow. I think you guys can see this from above. I'm just going to heat this up so hot that this piece won't have an excuse but to solder together. So if you stand here for 10 minutes and heat this and then drop your piece, if you're having trouble soldering, if you stand here for 10 minutes heating up this steel, when you drop your piece, it's pretty much gonna solder. So watch this. So now I can come in from the side. I've got all this filigree going on. Look at how gently I'm coming around the side of this and holding it down. This is where it really works out well. I can bring this down. Don't worry about the other side for now. I know I raised that side. Just kind of press everything down, but gently. Keep everything pressed gently. I have to bring this side down. There's. You can see it working. It's so beautiful. To solder, oh my gosh, you have to love when you see your solder flow. You can see there's the seam there, so I have to be very gentle right here. It's like, in my ears right now I hear angels singing because my solder is flowing beautifully. And it's all sweat soldered in. And I just kind of go, now that it's down, I can really see my solder come out on the edges of this filigree. And if it doesn't, it's not done yet, but this does. So I don't want to bring it any further than that. I don't want to buckle my metal. I've got a couple more pieces to go, but it's looking good. I'm closer and closer. Now this piece I can't put into the flux, so you always want to with 24 gauge, one of the secrets of working with 24 gauge is you cannot quench your sterling silver very quickly. I think a big part of what this course is about as well, because we're working large and small, is you have to be able to let your piece cool, because if you quench a 24 gauge right away, it will just buckle. So I'm gonna bring this over. I held this for like 10 seconds at least, and now I can quench it. And then I'm gonna come back in and I'm gonna make sure this is held down at every level, that everything is. If it wasn't, I wouldn't even worry about it right now, because I'm gonna go back in with 2 more solders actually. One, I made some pieces ahead of time, because really these pieces here, it really is just the alchemy of soldering. These here, this is the alchemy of soldering. I want to make a piece like that ring. So I just built these ahead of time so you guys wouldn't have to watch me build these little bezels again. I know it's fun, but I know it's fun. Okay, so I'm gonna get the stones out. So I have these pieces made. I really don't have to pickle right now. Ooh, up top, I don't have a lot of room. So I'm gonna actually put this big one here. I'm gonna find the skinniest piece that I have, the tiniest. You wanna make sure that you find your seam, and if you can, put your seam to the inside. You know, I'm gonna actually have to kind of float this piece on top of here, which is not good news, unless I can find a smaller one. I accidentally, oh see, remember I told you guys, I love when I make mistakes. And later I have to be able to find the right stone that fits into here too. So I actually didn't leave. I should have left enough room. Let me get this stone out. I should have left enough room on this top part so it can clear, so my stone can clear the filigree. So I'm gonna push this inward. I think there's a little, let's see. Oh, I think I can do this. You really wanna make sure it's straight up and down. There we go, perfect, you guys. It's just barely hitting over the edge, but I think I can make this work. I'm gonna pull this out for a second. All I'm gonna do right now to clean this solder, it's not really dirty, it really is flux, but I'm gonna clean it anyway. I'm just gonna hit it with my sandpaper. Let's see if that works. I'll actually stick it in the pickle for just a minute. I don't wanna go back in at this point and have extra work. So in my pickle. Okay, the reason I didn't do this solder all at the same time, did you guys wonder that? The reason I didn't solder everything down at the exact same time is that these are a little bit more fragile. This is that real thin gauge of metal. This is a little bit over the edge, but okay, there we go, got it. Okay, this is like a 32 gauge, it's fine silver. So these actually, I really need to take care that they don't come apart, you know, that they don't flow and melt on me. So I am gonna come in and then I'll show you guys clean up. Look at how close we're getting. So this is cool, you can do this pretty quickly. Okay, I'm gonna get in here like this. The more flux I can put on, the less damage it does to my piece. So sometimes I just, you know, flux around it. It'll be fun to see these tiny ones being soldered. There we go. I think it's gonna work this time. The soldered side is facing out, but it sits better here. Okay, warm it up. This again, I'm gonna have to go in from under. And this is gonna be a ring, so I'm gonna show you something different. I still have medium here, so that's good. Now these really, you really just need, you know, a little bit in here. There's a lot, but it's in one area. I just need a couple pieces. So I'm gonna get some of this out. I usually will just put it on 2 different sides. That's a lot too, but oh well. It'll be all right. It'll flow. It's not gonna come out. The nice thing is it's not gonna be sloppy and come outside of the bezel. when it's on the inside. Just a tiny bit, just a strip around the sides. You can see, I mean, it's not exactly flush, but I already know this is going to come out beautifully. So all my solder has to be touching the wall and the base plate. End of story. Do I have enough up top? Nope, that one I do not. Missed it somehow. Okay. You have to remember to breathe while you're soldering too, and that clearing that I talked about earlier. Okay, there we go. It's touching both sides on all of them. Get my flux on the way. I can't tell you how many times I have dumped flux onto my work. You want to check things and make sure. There we go. Okay, so again, I'm going to start from under and get up pretty high now. Even though these are fragile and fine silver, I really need a hot torch because I am working with a lot of metal. All of this metal on here is just building a bigger, it's called a heat sink. And what that actually means is it's taking my heat source away. So I'm trying to work as close to the bottom as possible. I'm going to start with this piece here. Now again, I'm going to get up under my piece. My piece is nice and I'm just heating up the screen under here. I can get under the screen on all the sides. It doesn't matter if I get into the center. So let me see if I have this piece hot enough. I do have to get in here though, but I'm going to bring my flame down a little bit. You just don't want a big bushy flame. It's one of the, one of the harder, there you go. See that flow? Look at how pretty. The other side, if I need to, I can tap it down. As long as the top is cold, I can tap things down. Which means as long as the top is cold, means that my heat is low. See how low my heat is? Sometimes, and if your pick is not hot, you can press down, move things around if need be. So don't worry about that. Everything is down and flowed over here. This end, I'm gonna get up under. Pretty much, if you hit it from under, it's gonna go for you. And there it goes again. Push it down. Just for a second, you can't hold it long, but this piece is pretty far on the inside. Every piece is treated differently. So I'm just gonna go up from under, drop it, and there we go, boom. Press it down. Okay, this whole piece is done. Voila, except for the ring band, and I'm gonna show you guys, I'm gonna let this pickle. It looks just beautiful. It's going to be the ring band. You could see it getting closer to this here. So I'm gonna pickle this and I'm gonna get the jeweler saw ready. We'll be doing the jeweler saw. Voila. So here's the piece. I put in the pickle and I took it out. And I wanted to show you, I really like to have this clean, and I love having really good light overhead when I go in to start cutting with the jeweler saw. There is so much to say on the jeweler saw. Many years ago, oh my gosh, 10 years ago, I did a whole, I think it was an hour film of how to use a jeweler saw, how to, all different types of material. Well, this is gonna be good. I'm gonna be able to give you guys a nice background on this, and you'll really understand why. I've had so many people that have told me as I'm cleaning this up too, you wanna make it nice and clean so you can get in there and cut it. I've had so many people tell me that they do not like the jeweler saw. Well, here's the thing about the jeweler saw, is that when you are doing the jeweler saw, when you're actually cutting, you're gonna have less filing afterwards. So the jeweler saw, I can get into all these little nooks and crannies that you see here, and I'll have less cleanup later, but also I can get in and pierce different areas from the inside, like if I want to cut out the inside of this stone. But really the reason for the jeweler saw is that really it's just, you have to come at your work relaxed. Anytime, I think a really good tip to talk about when you're working with metal is that your metal is always going to be stronger than you, so you always have to come at your metal relaxed, very, very relaxed. So with the jeweler saw, when I'm approaching my metal, I do those 3 deep breaths that I talked about earlier. This really is a time. Anytime I come up to my jeweler saw, I don't need to push and shove to get this piece done. I have to come at this very gentle. Really think of it as a meditation, a focus, really focusing a tremendous amount. This is my saw frame, and these are the blades. I actually use aught 3. And what aught 3 means, that's a 0. These are made in Germany. You want German tools, right? So this 3 with the 0 after it means that it is a small blade. There's a 3 without the 0, and it actually is a pretty good blade. So I'm just gonna take this and unwrap it maybe about halfway, and I am going to pull out one of these saw blades. They get so tiny that you really can't see the blades. You have to feel where your blades are. Now let's see, I just lost my blade. Okay, here we go. So you want this to be like you're petting your cat or your dog, where if you pet this way, it's nice and smooth, but if you go up this way, it's, you know, it's jagged. And that's exactly the way your blade should go in. You also, the way that you pick a blade, I have aught 3. Since I'm using a 24 gauge, you want your metal to be able to fit right in between a sheet of metal. One blade. So this fits beautifully, so I know it's a good size. If I was using anything bigger than this, it would be so jarring and jagged and would be really difficult to saw. So if you pick your right tools, you'll have grace and ease while you're working. Okay, so while loading up my saw, I'm gonna face it up towards me, and I actually am just gonna open up the top, open up this top right like that. And I check it again to make sure it's going the right way. There's always that. And then what I'm gonna do is you really kind of need to buckle this together. So I'm gonna stand. This is the one time with my work, you guys see I really like standing, but with this, I'm literally buckling my piece. I'm supporting it next to my bench pin so it doesn't slip around. And if you can play music with your jeweler saw, you know you've got it nice and tight. So here's some reasons that your blade might break. And please don't get hung up if your blade does break. These are so cheap. This is like $2 for 12 of them. So the reasons that your saw blade might break is that it's not oiled. So I oil it with a really thin oil. This is actually this, but I thought, oh my God, no one can even see it. It's a Burlife or a cut lube. So if you're gonna oil, you know, there's things like beeswax, but if you use a beeswax, you're literally, you're kind of covering up a lot of the, you know, the fine tooth in here. So I like using a real thin metal. And so you want to keep your blade loosened. Literally when you're coming into this, you want to be able to wear, you know, you're going to have your thumb on the side and you are not going to push. Your metal is always going to be stronger than you. So you literally have to let your tool work for you. So when you see my hand is gonna look like this, not like that. If you see someone's hand tight, my muscle, oh, I wore my long sleeves, but my muscle here will be working tight. This arm will be working tight, holding my piece down. I'm supporting it between this V, and that's where I'm doing my cutting. One thing I will say about 24 gauge is that it is thinner, so it's going to want to buckle if you put a lot of pressure down on here. It's going to want to kind of buckle in half as it cuts, and that's when your blade will break with the 24 gauge. So you really kind of want to keep this centered. So I'm going to hold this here. I'm going to put my thumbnail here. Remember when I told you I need my fingernails for my tools? You want to have, imagine having 2 teeth going through your sheet metal at any given time, which, what the heck does that mean, right? These are such tiny teeth. Well, what that really means is that it's going to be a slight angle like this. So a slight angle is another factor. So I'm just kind of held my thumb to get into where I need to go. I'm going to follow. I have clean metal so I can follow around the side. I don't want to get into my solder. I've got my magnifiers on. You want to hear a beautiful noise like that. And again, my hand is nice and soft. Oops, I can't really see around that big bezel right there. But if I get to a corner like this, I need to hold it in the same place and go up and down. Remember, they're not scissors. I think a lot of times when people move, they're an artist and they'll move from a different medium. You know, you have to know that your metal, you're not going to be able to cut like scissors. If I see you know, if I see a lot of these crumbs accumulating where I can't see, I'm just gonna brush them off. And I'm gonna get in here and around. And again, I'm letting my jeweler saw work for me. Focus, focus. Never try to move fast. This is a meditation. If you can't see where it is, just keep, you know, keep some eye blow on it. But I showed you with the brush too, if you don't want crumbs over. In your studio, you always want to set up safety. This is where I sit, and I'm comfortable here. Airborne pieces in your studio is what they say ends up being carcinogens. So some people work with a vacuum in their room. It's just little pieces of silver. You know, I figure there's a lot of copper that gets absorbed when you're soldering. Some people wear a mask when they're soldering. I find, you know, you could do these heavy metal cleanses once in a while, which is what I end up doing because it's really difficult. I have a studio. I have a great studio, but it gets so hot, and I don't really, because I'm using butane, I don't really wear a mask when I'm cutting with the jeweler saw, or, you know, if you guys saw me make a mistake, today I'm on a roll. Next month, you might, when we're in the next course, you might see me making mistakes. Who knows? Today, you can't get a mistake out of me. So maybe my jeweler saw will be beautiful too. And you know what I wanted to tell you too, when you're building your jewelry, there are so many days where I can see all these mistakes. Like say I'm building this piece and, you know, say at this point I made 3 little mistakes, and I'm looking through my magnifiers and I'm like, oh my God, look at all my mistakes. I have to tell you that by the time normally I'm finished and put everything together, there are no mistakes. You know, you can't really see them. So I'm gonna put a little bit more cut lube on just to keep it nice and oiled. It's gonna save your blade from breaking. Makes it a little messy at first. So, you know, one of the things that I want to try to do is have you be lenient on yourself. Whenever you're doing your jewelry work, you really want to come in a good space. If you make a mistake, don't be hard on yourself. I think, you know, because I've taught for so many years, I see people beat themselves up so bad because we're taught, oh no, we can't break a jeweler's blade. We can't, you know. This is kind of nice with this time because I can talk technique and I can talk ideas while I saw this out. This is a gorgeous edge on here too. You guys might like this when we get into the last chapter of scrap. You're gonna have a beautiful piece of scrap. Now, I'm halfway around. Now, when you get halfway around, make sure you hold on to both sides. Here, this is nice. I can get rid of this piece. You can see how beautiful and flat. So this is what the jeweler saw always does, is give you, you know, a gorgeous, flat, beautifully cut piece. I might just file that one off. I'm not going to worry about that. So I'm halfway through. You can see the back of it. You can see how it's done. This is where it is nice to have your magnifiers. And I had a nice stopping point, so that actually worked out perfect. Now, again, go in as a beautiful ballerina. Don't go in, you know. So I'm coming in, you know, I'm coming in with my breath. I'm coming into my piece being relaxed, and I will have more success this way than ever before. Just now, I want to continue, even though I'm halfway through and I've had success. You always have to remember at any given time, always keep your eye on the ball of where you're going. Stay in the moment with your jeweler saw. Don't get overconfident. Every time I walk into my studio, I have to prepare myself for being in that space, you know, and getting my work done right. So I guess that is the thing about, you know, part of the intentional part is what you're building, showing up, not beating yourself up for not getting things done perfectly. By the time you get done with this course, you'll have really a beautiful palette of techniques, and you'll have, you know, so the only thing is with the 24 gauge, remember I said to be careful your piece doesn't buckle, because if it does, if you start seeing this side being raised, it's just almost gonna like close up on your blade. So I'm holding both ends like this, and I'm working my way around. I am getting a little quicker, but I still have to be very, very careful to support. I can work closer to the top if I want to, and I don't want to turn quickly. So every time there are times that I walk into my studio space, even as long as I've been doing my jewelry, and I just make mistakes all day long. And I'm like, all right, that's it. You know, I think I'm done here. Depends on where your focus is. I used to snowboard all the time, and I had so much fun with it. But if your eyes didn't follow your snowboard, you were head first into the snow. You know, so that was kind of a really nice discipline for me to learn. And it's the same thing with your jeweler saw. You keep your eyes focused on your jeweler saw. You're just one little step ahead. You're not worrying about getting done. I think when people tell me that they hate the jeweler saw, it is people who, sorry, it's just my glasses. It's people who actually want to be done. You don't really want to be here in this moment cutting it. If you want to be here in this moment cutting it, you're going to have a breeze. I know it's a whole philosophy, I swear. It really is a whole philosophy. So even if you know, sometimes I don't love it, but I don't sit here and think, oh my gosh, I've got to go home. I've got to, you know, I'm going out with my friends tonight. I've got to meet everybody. Let me get done. You can't do this in a rush. So 1/4 left, you guys. And even though I would love to have this done quickly, I'm actually thinking of many things to say to you guys as I go around, and you can see all the ins and the outs. And the only thing to do with the jeweler saw is to practice over and over again. Every time you cut like this, you're going to get better and better. Truthfully, when I first started, you know, on these edges, because I had to really work out the 24 gauge. I used to always work with 18 gauge. And see these here, I have a couple edges here. I can just file off those edges. Now, this is a super good workout. I know it doesn't seem like it. You're sitting in a chair. So if you're going to be sitting in a chair, you could be, you know, you'll get a nice sweat going. You'll get a really nice bicep with this technique, I promise you. Couple more. Don't get excited when you get to the end. Just keep your eyes right in front of you. Oop, that one's a little over. Let's see if I can cut back. So you just don't want to turn very quickly, and your saw blade will last. This is actually the kind of saw blades I buy are student grade. They don't last the best. They don't last the longest, but they are not that expensive. When you get really, you know, you don't want to start buying really expensive saw blades unless you cannot break your blade. Okay. I mean, back in school, we would keep our saw blades, you know, just keep making our saw frame smaller and smaller. Kind of funny. Okay. All right. Don't get excited. I'm at the end. I'm going to work over this little section here because I don't want my metal to buckle. And I'll have the rules written out for the saw blade too. And I think I discussed the saw blade in my bookmaking connections. There we go. So, voila. What you want to do here is anytime I'm relaxing my blade, I want to let it relax. I want to make sure it's oiled. I can sit this here for a long time, but if I keep it tight, when I come in tomorrow to use it, it's going to break on me. So I have a nice spot that I hang it up behind there, but that basically is the jeweler saw. The jeweler saw is practice. I'm just going to get into these tips. I'm getting into these tips where I may have not, where I came out too far with my edges. If I need to get in between there, I have the tiniest, which would be extra. You know, I have the tiniest of files, which here's a nice round one. If I had to get into here and do a little bit of filing, you could fit right inside here. So that's nice. If I had, you know, I have half curves, things like that. I don't really need to. I think I did a nice job. I just have a few edges over here. So let me grab this edge around my bezel. Remember, you only want to file down. Now, there's all kinds of tools. Truthfully, if I'm not working on small tools, I'll get in and clean this up on my jeweler's wheel. But since we're showing just these tools today, I'm going to stay with my file. This is cutting nicely. Oops, guess what? I see as I'm examining my edges, this was that one edge on top. Oh, remember, it was a little short. Okay, well, I have an edge that's a little short, so I could either fill in or just try. Actually, it looks like I can just get this bezel down a little bit better. So I'm going to get back in. If you are looking at your piece, better now to find mistakes. There's a little tiny hole in there. I'm just going to go back in, put a little piece of solder, and hit it tight. Now, I'm going to show you on my jeweler's wheel, just hitting these edges and cleaning up these edges a little. Okay, so here's where I actually remember right when I was bragging to you guys about how I didn't make any mistakes. Here's a little mistake right here. So I'm gonna put a little bit of, I'm gonna warm this up, only use medium over and over. So I'm gonna get my medium out, but let me warm it up, dry it up, and get a little bit of solder in there. I thought I had it sitting on there so nicely, but you can see it just, you know what, don't worry if you end up making a mistake. There's always time. Better to see it now, you know, while inspecting than afterwards. So, okay. I just have to get up and under this little piece right here. I do have to get it warm. Actually, I'm going to heat this. I'm just going to heat this screen up tremendously. Elbows on the table. Heat this screen up tremendously and then push my bezel over. This screen really works out well with the butane, so. Okay. And it still is a filigree on top, so I want to be super careful. I have a big heat sink with the rest of the bezel, so I have to be very, you know, it's going to take me a little longer than you'd think. People will ask me, how come it took so long? And it's just that I have a lot working against me now. But you just have to keep your focus, keep it heated. It will flow, that we know for sure. Yay, there we go. Okay. And make sure it's closed up. There we go. Pretty sure it's closed. Let me check that again. Yes, gorgeous. No worries. Okay, so let me quench this. That's a repair. I'm not going to worry about pickling it now. The pickle will, you know, it'll be pickled all at once after I get the ring band. I'm going to show you the ring band on this, and then I'll be setting stones and getting everything organized. So it's going to be really beautiful. I'm excited. For the ring band, these ends are filigree, so I want to make sure I flip it over. And this is right where I'm putting the ring band. Let me just hit it to make sure it's super clean. Always clean at all moments. So I'm going to hit this with sandpaper. Get my flux on, because that's what we do, is flux, flux, flux. And just heat that up a little. I'll come back in with more flux. Right in that center is where I'm going to set my ring. And oh, This one actually, I don't have to, when I work with some of these longer rings, I have to be concerned about where my ring band sits because you know how I want it to sit if I want to bring this down. This ring band here, you know, I really set it and made sure I measured it all up. This one is more of a centered ring. I can just do my ring band right in the center, so I'm not worried about that. Okay, so I want to show you one more thing with the jeweler saw. I want to cut out the inside of this. You guys saw that I'm working with a beautiful amethyst stone, and for this amethyst to shine through, it's going to be nice with some of the back cut out. So I'm going to come over, I'm going to grab my drill that I used earlier, and this is called piercing, and you guys will also get to see another tricky thing that the jeweler saw is able to do for us. Really cool. So I'm actually just gonna put a little bit of lube on here too, and I'm just gonna pierce right through the center of this. Voila. And then I'm gonna come back over to my jeweler saw. Look at that, I'm still using the same blade. Isn't that exciting, guys? And I'm gonna be able to thread this through. So this is really the reason for the jeweler saw. There's no other tool that will do this. So I'm loading this up. This one's a little looser. See, you can see that I need it a little tighter. So you wanna pull on it and cinch it in at the same time. There we go, much higher note. You want those high soprano notes when you're working with your jeweler saw. Now, you know, I'm right in the center of here. I'm just gonna cut out a small section because it is a ring. I'm just gonna cut a small piece in the center. If it's a transparent, if it's not a transparent, sometimes I do just to take off weight. You guys saw the really large druzy stone that I was wearing earlier. I many times cut with my jeweler saw, cut out the back just to make a lighter. Rings, I don't mind being heavier, but pendants you don't want super heavy. Earrings, definitely cut the backs out. There we go. I'm just having a little section cut out. This will actually help the light to come up through here, and I'll be able to, you know, it'll help my piece glow even if I don't do it any larger. Here's that half round file. I get a chance to use that half round file. Beautiful. And then in the back, I want to hit it with sandpaper. It always helps when you're, you know, when you're getting your piece soldered, just to hit the back. It smooths it off, finishes it up. This one's a little dirty now, but don't worry, the back is clean. All I have to do is the ring band. So, you know, I can see which way I want. I think I'm gonna do this one a little bit longer. So I want my band to sit the longer way. You know, I could do it this way, but I think this one is gonna go this way. That'll be nice. Okay, so I want my band to sit this way. Okay, for this class today, what I want to show you is just a traditional patterned wire. I love it because it's a nice heavy weight with rings, especially of this size. You kind of really want a nice bulky band. So I'm going to start again. Everything is file. The file is your friend. And I also, on this one, I'm kind of noticing that I need to file it a little on the side for some reason. Okay. All right. So I have got a wooden mandrel. I'm going to show you an adjustable ring. I love adjustable rings in my work because they give your, they give your wearer the opportunity to, just to be a little bit more flexible for these big ones. Once I had all these rings, beautiful rings that I had just finished, and I had all these people standing in line, waiting, picking up the rings, trying them on. They all wanted to buy my rings, and they'd try them on, and they didn't fit because I had them to size. My heart hurt because I couldn't sell them. Their heart hurt because they couldn't buy them, and I was like, this is not a win-win situation. So From that point, I really decided to make adjustable bands. And if you see on my rings, I have some nice adjustable bands that are comfortable. And these are both in the last chapter, but they're both comfortable and they can be adjustable. So if I decided to switch fingers, I could do that. So I'm going to show you an adjustable ring band. You could snip these, but if you can get a really straight line across, you will be in better shape in making that commitment. So I'm just going to go across here. I'm holding it down. Try to get a nice straight line. Try to do it. Whoops, and sometimes that happens. So what you really want to do is make sure that your band, I need to get this filed, and then I want to make sure that my band is in the circular position. It's easier to have this circular position before you put it together. This side looks like it's not exactly straight. So even though we're not planning on joining up our edges, it is really good to get this filed on your edges, get it smoothed down so it's comfortable afterwards. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the other side of my band and get that rolled into position too. So better to do this now. I'll take my pliers and really get it bent nicely. Decide on your size. So I have a beautiful spot right on top. It's also nice if it just about meets, and then so I have a beautiful space right here. Now, if you're doing an adjustable band, you do not want to have your metal touching each other, your ends, or they'll get soldered together. There we go. Oh, there goes some of my light, but you guys get the idea. So here's where we're at the EZ again. I had to put a little bit more water in here. We're at the EZ. I'm going to just drop the whole ring band in here. This is the part that's on top, right here. So I actually am going to get this warmed up a bit. Remember, I like dropping my EZ solder onto here because it actually will give me oh, that was from my brush. It gives me an indication. This is my EZ solder. It gives me an indication of when my piece is ready to accept the ring band. And you're going to see me working in almost the same way that you did before with bezel wire. So this one is really all about the sweat soldering, this course. So there's all my EZ. For the sweat soldering, again, I need to dip it into my flux. And I'm going to heat this piece like this. And I am going to grab some of my solder. Bring it in. And I just really want to put this right on top. Now, when you're using EZ solder, it's kind of funny because you think that it's going to be so easy to solder. And this is one of the... You have to have your flame pretty warm with EZ solder. Okay, locking pliers. I can't help but when I get going, my tools just spread a bit. So here's my locking pliers. Here, I'm going to flux this one more time just to be sure. You guys can see my solder that's laying across here. That's the EZ solder, so I'm going to hold it this way. Now remember, I wanted my positioning in this way, so I'm going to lean in. This side is the side I want. So this is about right where I want my piece to be. So I need a lot of heat. Even though it's an EZ solder, I need a lot of heat because this piece, I'm heating up all of this heat sink here. Now you want to be careful with your flame. I like the wood that's on these picks because you can really get this solder flowing by holding it straight up and down. My hands aren't going to get burned. See that? It's already flowing. I can get my ring band in here. My ring band is a little hefty. There we go. Now, you have to count to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 before EZ solder flows. Look at that. I don't really like that connection under here. It looks good from here, but looks like I need a little bit tighter down here So let's see what I can do. The one thing I don't want this to do is to come apart later for any reason. So I'm just gonna take my hand off and I'm gonna get back in here and just push it a little bit more. Now be careful with EZ because EZ is like a puddle, again, I'll say. And I don't want to burn it out, but I do want to make sure, there we go. I do want to make sure that it's securely down so my piece does not come apart later. You don't want that. Bravo. Okay. Beautiful, looks good. See, this side is not soldered down, so it can be adjustable. It can match up or it can be adjustable on, you know, whichever way. Oh, I did do it the long way. See, that happens too sometimes. I have other things to show you guys. Time for the pickle. Okay. Time for the pickle, and I do want to show you, while this is in the pickle, before I set the stones, I want to show you another layer to this technique. And this, with these two techniques that I'm showing you today, you will have a lot of information and to be able to play with a lot of the ideas that I showed you. So now we're going to be building. Now we're building this piece right here. You can see it's more than just the filigree. I needed to solder together 2 wires to work with this piece. I'm going to work with a large one, and it's kind of cool. It gives you a lot of freedom. So if you know, for me, it's like when I find these really large pieces, I can, you know, I can take a regular 24 gauge sterling silver and I can take a filigree, and I'm going to use this other type of filigree wire that I haven't used yet because I sometimes love when my silver comes a long way down my bezel. You can see these are drilled, so I do need to cover up that area here, and it's going to be really fun. I'll show you how I can go around the corners with this piece here. So while that piece is in the pickle, I'm going to show you these, and then I'll show cleanup at the same time. I am going to use the smaller screen for this. Voila. And this technique, you want to really make sure that your edges are straight for this. You want to make sure your piece is straight. Usually this is, you know, this is like a 32 gauge, so I can bend this pretty nicely and get it nice and straight. You want your edges to be straight, so I'm just kind of playing around with this there. That looks nice and straight where it can sit that way. I'm going to lay this here. Oops. Flare it up a little bit, but the bottom is straight. Okay. This piece, you know, a lot of times your edges will flare up. Okay. See how nicely I can get these matched together. So I'm literally butting pieces up right next to each other, and I need them to solder together. And again, I'm working on the back side. When I work with filigree, I'm working on the back side. Now, how is this gonna work, you asked? I'm so glad that you asked. Yay. Okay, this is gonna be easy. These are the trickiest little things that you ever did see. These are actually T-pins. These are at hardware stores, sewing stores. I love these T-pins. They're pretty essential, so you can push on your work, but they don't push across the room. And this is where, remember I talked about, I love having this really soft, this is a really soft piece. I can stick these right in. This board under here is so hard. I really can't get these to stick in. So this is when I make a decision to use this softer board, which I love using anyway, but you can see how I'm just putting these right in here. Now, the one thing I have to be careful of is that these pins don't heat all the way up, because then it's gonna melt my prongs over there. I think that's enough. I think that's enough. We'll just leave it like that. Okay, cool. Now you guys know I told you that even though it is sticking up a little bit, best to get it set up as easily and nicely as possible. but I'm making my own bezel wire, and a lot of times when you're making your own bezel wire, let me bring these pieces over. If you guys loved seeing these pieces here, it's the same technique. It's kind of like, this was something that I worked on. I was so excited to come up with this idea. I love all this exploration, but this is actually the bezel wire along with a square wire, along with beaded wire. So it's the same thing. I'm putting it together the same way. I'm creating my own bezel wire. Well, by already made bezel wire for you. So I'm layering it together and making something different that no one else has. So I'm gonna go ahead and making things longer with big stones. I'm putting my pieces across. And again, I always love, love, love. This is tricky. Now look at the two. Remember when I said when you come up to your piece, you have to make a decision on where the heat's gonna go. Right now I'm just warming it up and making sure my flux is in place. The nice thing is the flux kind of works like glue. Sometimes if you saw this piece, I didn't really sand it or clean it, the plain bezel wire. So sometimes I have to go over it again to get it fluxed up. Okay, there we go, nice and fluxed. Okay, so I'm not as worried. I need this to be immobile. So I'm setting up my anvil. I need this as I go to be able to push this in. I'm gonna use hard, right guys? Hard is giving me the tools that I need all the way across. Hard, because this is my bezel wire. I'm even gonna have to put a hard in the seam, and then this will never come undone, which is exactly what we want. So I'm just gonna run across here and drop some solder. As long as your paintbrush is wet with flux, you can drop your solder on easily. Oops, I do not want that up there. And you have to, as I'm talking, I'm like, remember to breathe, Susan, breathe. I talk so much and then I'm like, oh, I'm out of energy or I'm tired for some reason. So when you're working too, you know, sometimes you find you hold your breath if you're getting a soldering project done. And the best thing really to do is to breathe. So it's really kind of fun when you cross over. I mean, it's informative when you cross over into different fields of, you know, just yoga mixed with, my work is yoga mixed with soldering. Now, this is a lot on the back, but that's okay. That's okay. It's gonna be good. Now, I'm gonna say 85% of the heat is going onto this bezel. Do you see how I set this up? Where my filigree bezel is away from me, I do not want to touch those tips at all. So my flame, I need to come under here, but actually I might just come across the top. Because of this fine screen, it's going to help the solder to pull through. So that's why I love using these screens. It will, even though I'll be heating my piece from the top, you're gonna see me hitting about here, and 85% is on the plain bezel. I'm gonna be hitting it under also because I need it to pull through. Okay, here we go. I am not gonna do, even though this is a hard solder, it's just I don't have a big heat sink here. So I'm coming in, elbows on the table, I'm warming it up, and I'm gonna make sure, you know, I kinda wanna get things warmed up, and I'm just gonna chase this solder down. So, and I'm gonna push it together. You wanna really get it heated up equally, or your piece is gonna start buckling away from the others. You don't want it to buckle. Here's my objective, is I'm just gonna be pushing this towards my pins. So thank God for these pins. My coffee is done, so I'm not shaky this afternoon. There we go, see it starting? Okay, so this is where I'm gonna bring my pick down. First of all, I'm gonna go down and just see how beautiful that is. Just kind of flows into place. You want to heat it a little bit and pull this solder down. This is where I am working hand in hand with my solder. Gentle flame. Ooh, this one looks like there's a little bit of a jump in the Okay, I've got to fix something right here. There's a little bit of a jump. Okay, see how beautiful that was? Voila! Looks like everything is filled in. I'll know when I pick it up. So you don't want to pick it up before you get your pins out. I'm going to put these pins to the side so they don't go back in the container. These pins, these tiny little inexpensive pins, are going to be invaluable at different times. Okay, you know how you tell if you did it right or not? You hold it up to the light. And if you see no, here, I'll hold it under this light. How about that? If you see no, nothing through the other side, I don't see any hole, so I know I did it right. Believe me, this took me a long time to master. I would do this over and over. You really have to set it up to start with. But this is nice. I don't see a lot of solder on the other side. My hole, you can see the beaded band is done beautifully. All of my filigree and all the fine detail is still all there. So that's pretty exciting. I'm gonna go ahead and pickle this, and I'm just gonna let this, I'm just gonna quench this real quick. Okay. I'm just going to quench this because now I think I'm going to be talking a lot about this next month, but when you heat up a piece, it becomes annealed, which means it's dead soft. I can bend this like butter. When I hit it with a hammer, it becomes hardened, and it's really hard to bend. I want to show you guys how I'm going to bend around this area and how I'm going to work this out. So I'm going to get this set up and I will pickle this. I know I told you guys I work with a couple pieces at the same time. When I'm really done with the piece, as I am with the ring, it actually needs to sit in there and pickle for a little bit. So I'm going to cut off. You can see how it's a little bit uneven and jagged there. I'm going to cut that off as straight as I can, and then I'm going to come over to my handy dandy jeweler's bench. Just hit it a little bit, get it nice and straight. And I should have a nice straight line. Gorgeous, I'm thinking. Okay, now to get this bezel set on this end, I'm going to start, usually I'll pick, I chose these projects because they're educating you guys and showing you the most amount of information. So when you're setting a bezel, you don't want to start on the end. So I'm going to hold this down here, and I can actually see, I'm going to have my pliers hand in hand with me, not these. I'm going to want my very favorite pliers. Oh, here they are. These tapered ones. I love these tapered ends, and I can hold this right here, and I can see this is exactly where I need to make a bend. So I'm going to hold these nice and straight, like this, straight up and down, and exaggerate my bend and bring it back again. That's how you get your nice squares. At different points, I've actually, at a different point, maybe with boxes, I'll show really how to get in and take some of the metal away. But at this point, I don't really have to. This is exaggerated a little bit much up here, but I had to show you guys. Okay, so remember, I'm starting at the biggest point here. So there we are here. Now I need another bend right here. So I'm gonna hold it straight like this, and I'm gonna do my next bend. If you guys have trouble with your arms and strength, you can bend it sharply on your table in front of you to get your nice bends. All right, let's see where we're at. And sometimes this gets to be like a puzzle, but it really is worth learning. Okay, there we go, see that? So I'm going to take out this exaggerated bend. Remember, I'm starting on the biggest end, so I always know where to go back to. 1, 2, and if you find those round crystals, it'll be easier. I love showing complexities because then your life is easier when you do your own thing later. I'm showing you guys the hardest that there is, you know what I mean? You have to learn a lot of the techniques and then go back in and you'll see how simple things are. Yay! Okay, see that? Nicely done, Susan. Nicely done. Okay. This, I don't worry about exact. It's this one actually, the surprise of it is, you're going to see, most of the time I burnish. When you're hanging a piece horizontally like this, there is no getting around it. We are going to have to use a little bit of glue in the work. And I'll show you when I'm done. I wanted to save glue for this chapter. Wait, do I have this on right? Okay. I just have this a little bit over. This one needs to be a little closer. Okay, so if you have to go back in and make a bend a little closer, I'm going to bend it right like this. I'm actually going to bend it on my table like this. Okay, now let's see where we're at. Open it back up. We're getting closer. Remember, again, just take your time. This is the way it is with work. There we go. Oh, perfect. See, you'll find it's just a puzzle. You'll find the perfect place. Okay, on to the next one, which is right here. And I'm going to take this and bend it on my surface, save any damage to my hands. Open it back up and let's see where we're at. So, you know, just unfortunately, it's just a lot of back and forth. Wrong way. Now they all look like large ends, right? You guys are looking through the same camera that I'm looking. There we go. One more, and then that tiny one on the side. So we're almost there, guys. So that needs to be bent right here, and this needs to be bent right here. There, look at how beautiful that is. Okay, marker. Okay. There we go. This will have to be perfect. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna just use my snips with this one and come straight across. You don't want it too big, you don't want it too short. And make sure this edge is filed. I don't want to undo this bezel, so I'm just going to file it this way. There's just different circumstances all the time, you know, there's a lot of rules in soldering. There's main ones that are important, but for the most part, get in your studio and figure out what works for you and what doesn't work for you, you know? I'm liking this. This is going to be a nice match once I can get this folded over and spring-loaded. And I bring my edges back and forth. There we go. See how beautiful that's sitting? Believe me, guys, this is a nice roll today. I'm getting things done beautifully. Okay, so here we go. I'm still gonna work this on the side. I'm gonna get this nice and hot. You can see what a beautiful, beautiful butted edge I have. I'm gonna stay towards the bottom a little bit just to warm it up. But you can see I really don't have to put any heat on the top of this. This is so fragile up on top. I am doing this seam also with a hard. Voila, I promised you guys I would. If you have trouble sticking these on here, you really have to keep your paintbrush full of flux. And then, you know, when it hits the heat, it'll really like glue it on. So the flux really works like a glue. Okay, one more. This one, whoop, right back into the container. Okay, one more on the, whoop, I don't want too many though. All right, I am ready to go. I didn't really put any up on that filigree. And I'm gonna do elbows on the table. I don't need that hot, but I need a little hotter. This is a 24 gauge metal. And you can see I'm doing it flat. That's so the bottom stays flat. Just at the beginning, I'm getting the top hot. And it's hard because I do want to get inside. So I'm going to do a little bit of work after I get this to flow. And sometimes I end up having to sand off a lot of the metal. There we go. See that beautiful flow? I can get this seam I can get the excess off of here too. There we go. Okay, beautiful. Let's look at the inside. If it's not all the way, I feel like it's together. I don't see it flowing through all the way, but I can always flip it this way. And remember, the reason why I do, there we go, I can flip it this way to get it to flow. Or I can put another piece on the inside if I needed to. There, I'm happy. Okay, here's my piece. I'm gonna quench it. And at this point, I just wanna make sure it's gonna fit right. So with everything done, what does that look like, right? So this is a complex piece for you. Once I get it on, oh, I have to sand off some of that. That's actually just excess solder. Okay, so here's the puzzle. Oh, I think this is right for the puzzle, and it'll get everything in shape. Luckily, this is a nice sturdy crystal. I'm gonna turn it over like this, and if there's any sides that I have to get this piece worked on and pushed in, you know what, I think it's this one that needs to round out a little. Luckily for me, with the Revere pliers, there actually is this half round that helps you to bring your work outward and keep it round on the inside. See what I mean by that? I need a little bit of some of these just moved in a little bit here. So it's all just this type of movement and finagling and, you know, adjusting and getting things to work exactly right. There we go. Look at how easy that fits in there. Now I have to get it all the way to the top. Okay. Yay! Since I had a little bit of flux on my stone, this is a stone that can get wet. It can even go in liver or sulfur if you needed to. It's a nice, strong amethyst, and these are solid. When you're working on softer stones like druzy, you have to be much more, and fossils, you have to be gentle with going in water or liver or sulfur. This one's nice and strong. I just wet it and cleaned it off because the shine on here is what I'm really looking for. This is the piece. I pulled it right out of the pickle. So I'm gonna go in and get started, just getting this cleaned up. Remember I talked about having to get this silver up to a beautiful shine, because when I darken this, I'm gonna put this in the liver sulfur, but I need a nice cleaned off surface so I can get that shine. So to get all this matte off, and if I did everything right, you know, now is the time where you're like, oh, thank God I went back in and patched up that one edge, because once you get your stones in here, you really can't get in again, and you'll have to pull your stones out to do any more soldering. Or, you know, down the road in the course, I'll show you a real tricky thing with, there's an extra easy solder, which actually is almost even more like a glue than easy solder. I think of easy solder as kind of like a glue, you know? But it's still a very effective one. It lasts long through time. For these in here, I'm gonna get in this way. These are not transparent stones. The tiny ones are these little blue amethyst here. They're not, I actually am using the cloudier. I do have some real clear ones, but I'm gonna use these little cloudy ones since the one in the center is so clear. Okay, there we go. Now it is time for liver or sulfur. We're gonna come back here and I'll show you how to set the stones right in this spot. But while we are up and around, I'm gonna show you the liver or sulfur, and I think I have it mixed up. Okay, I am back. I just put this in liver or sulfur. We've got the nice dark area. It just even is a pretty ring as it stands right now with all the complexity to it. So this, you can really see, is about the complexity of building. And again, I'm gonna get in and just scrub this up really nicely. I do happen to know how much action the pieces here can take. But this type of a motion with the steel brush is going to give you your shine. Look at that nice shine that is being brought up from the liver of sulfur and the oils in the liver of sulfur. So it's really nice. This is a workout. I tell you what, when you go home from doing your metal work, your muscles, you know, your muscles, you're using your muscles to be pretty strong. All of this, and this is the polish that I do. I mean, it's a beautiful polish. The real, you know, the nice part is the liver of sulfur that gives you your oil and your shine. I use that polishing cloth. You guys, if you need more of a shine, you can use that polishing cloth. I like to keep the backs of these. You know, this one has an amethyst, so I'm going to scrub this up really nicely. I still can do more scrubbing, or I can do more liver of sulfur if I want to. Now, the thing that I did, let me show you. This is actually a steel. You can find this steel wire. It's an 18 gauge. You can find this at the hardware store. You can find it at jeweler stores. And what this does for me, when I have a stone that wants to wobble all over the place, this is going to be a good setting for you guys to know. I just cut my wire to size so it, you know, it actually is secure. It's going to be secure in this piece. It'll be easier for me setting. So these rosecut differ from, you know, some of the other stones that I used in alchemy and soldering. So now we're jumping up to a little bit more sophisticated. So these I cut and shaped. They're not soldered. They just are made to sit right around the outside. And then what happens is I can drop my stone in. Whoop. If I didn't drop my stone in right, then I can pop something through. Let me get this popped up through. Luckily I have this hole in here. If I didn't have this hole, I would have to you know, try to get this in here with the threads. So I'm going to drop this straight in, try to get it as straight. Sometimes there we go. Look at that. What a gorgeous fit. It's transparent. You can see through to the bottom. You can see through to the ring band. That makes me happy. I really like that a lot. Okay, I'm going to use my tapered. When I'm setting stones like this, I'm going to just bring the prongs over. So, and this also helped to raise this up, to raise my stone up. Sometimes I'll even put in two. I actually might build one more. Let me see if I build one more. If I need to raise it a little bit higher. If you like seeing a lot of your bezel wire, you can put it in this way, and I'll show you guys how to build one. Okay, so I'm gonna actually just build this to shape, and you're just gonna get in here and start moving this around. It doesn't have to be exact. I mean, it doesn't have to be perfect like you're setting your bezel, is what I'm trying to say. You just need to make sure that it can fit inside comfortably and hold up your stone. So I'm going to cut it right here. And then what I'm going to do is just kind of work these ends out. If your piece, you know, for me, it's like I kind of have been doing this. It's nice and flush. If it's not flush, you're just gonna use your you're gonna use, you know, just hit it a little with a hammer. I think I have mine is nice and straight, but just, you can sit it onto your bench block and hit it with a hammer. And let me see if I'm gonna like it with two stacked in here. Sometimes I like it with one, and I like seeing more filigree showing, and sometimes I just want my filigree right up over the top. So, ooh, look how gorgeous that is, guys. So I can see this end here is a little bit higher. So I'm actually gonna hold this down. This gets a little trickier. I'm gonna hold this down, and I'm gonna bring this end in down here sooner because it's a little thinner as we get to this end. So, you know, when you're working with rose cut, it's not all perfectly symmetrical, but you guys are in the little bit more of a sophisticated course, so you can handle it. So again, you could use a bezel pusher, but I really like using my pliers, and I'll show you why when we get to the small ones. There we go. Getting this over. You want to make, you know, I only move it. So when I'm setting this, I move it a small degree and I can move this around. So I'm just moving it. I'm not setting all the way over. I'm not taking one side and setting it completely and bringing it to the other side and setting it, because then your stone's going to be pushed out by the time you get there. So you really need to think of working with it equally, you know, on all four corners. So that's just bringing these in on all four corners. Again, I love the idea that I'm just using my tools here, and these are set so beautifully so they're not going to damage my stone. Look at how gorgeous this edge is. I love these pliers, the tapered ones. So I'm moving around because with the ring band I can't get in there as well. There we go. So, you know, here is once I get these set down, then what I want to do is I'm going to very gently come over the top. I don't want to scratch my stone. I don't want to hurt my stone at all. So you have to be very gentle. You don't want to hurt your bezel wire. You don't want to hurt anybody at this point. So nice and gentle. Okay. I'll probably run over this a little bit towards the end, but I want to get to this part here. My side stones, doesn't that look pretty? And I might have to put in the liver or sulfur again. I really kind of gave it a big polish. I've got these little stones. I have to figure out who goes where. But in the meantime, I did cut these tiny ones. So I know this goes with this big one here. Now, when you are set, this one I accidentally, you can see, remember when I told you end up with a few mistakes all over the place? This one actually, when I got done doing these, I made these bezels wires ahead of time. Darn, do I have a spare one? When I made these ahead of time, I realized that one bezel is higher than the other. So I just wanted to make sure. I'm going to set a smaller one in. I'll see how that sets. This goes here. I'm keeping them all laying flat because I have them done ahead of time. That goes there. They don't have to be perfect, but they do have to be functional. Okay. You know, if I had a hole in the middle, they still would work well. They do have to lay flat. Okay, now which piece goes where? I need my skinniest one to go here, which looks like this one, and it looks like the point is downward, so this looks like this one. So I'm going to go ahead and press that in. Ah, gorgeous. Okay, that one is beautiful. There's just a hair coming up over the top. Now, this is going to be really tricky on showing you how to set this. It's tricky because I'm with my hands. It's hard to have my hands. You like these gorgeous hands. Okay, so here's the side right here. I'm just going to bring these pliers up and over like this while I'm holding this down. This is the trickiest with small bezels. You guys really got to learn a lot today on setting kind of some exotic bezel, you know. These stones are unusual and the settings are unusual. And this is just my technique that, you know, when I decided to work with these, I get into my studio and I do a lot of exploring and I find what tool is going to work better. And for me, you know, instead of a bezel setter, look at how gorgeous these pliers work. And I'm just bringing my silver up and around nice and tight until your piece is set and done. There, gorgeous. One. That's one. Now I'm gonna find, you know, you have to try to find it by your shapes. And if they don't fit, they don't fit. But let's see, nope. That one's really small. Let's see, super small, maybe this one will fit. Ah, this one, there's gonna be a lot of silver on here. I'm pretty sure this goes there and that one goes there. There's gonna be a lot of bezel, but I'll show you how it looks with a lot of silver on the side. This one, you can see the size was a little bit off, and it's so high, but I can get this all the way over and it's gonna be beautiful. Just don't mind my hands in the meantime. It's really part of the process that has to go. Since there's a lot, this one's a little trickier, so I'm trying to bring this up and over. Up and over. up and over. And I'm going to turn it this way to get it at this area. So it's just, you know, you can see how I'm working on my bench pins. Bench pins are not expensive at all, and they're so essential with all the little spaces in here. See that? Look at how gorgeous this ending. So sometimes coming up a little higher, you know, really gives you a big difference, and that one's down lower. So that's going to be a matter of taste. Now let me see. This one is a little, that one is a little short, but that's okay. You saw how beautiful that looked. And this one's gonna fit in here, so perfect. But I don't want these all in here at one time. So I am going to get this piece in, and it's just the redundancy again of getting all these pieces set. You know, not aggressively working one side over the other. I'll show you on another one I have, I'll show you an engraver where you actually can get into your work and engrave your name onto the back, but that's when I do another segment. I'll show you engraving. So this looks beautiful. One more stone left. Is it this one or that one? This one. Okay. This one's a little big, but that's okay. It's gonna look good. A little big. I think maybe there was another one. I actually did these last night, but I can get this one to fit. The bezel is a little big. For these small ones, sometimes it works. Sometimes it works. Better to be a little big because these tiny bezels you can fold over rather than too small. Oh my gosh, can I tell you, you know, really it's the perfection of getting them done well. Okay. All right, you guys, look at how gorgeous these colors are. You have the beautiful colors. It really fits nicely. Fit for a queen, and this piece is done. I just want to show you a little bit different of a bail. This one is a sea bail that's right on top of here. I'm going to use an easy and put this on. The reason why I want to put this piece together for you is because I want to show you, I want to talk a little bit about glue and the way when I do use glue and why I use glue. So let me get this one finished up for you. I'm just going to show you, I'm going to dry up the top of here. I need a little bit more, I can see. Just get the top covered, nice and covered. And then I'm going to pick up some easy solder that's right here. Get this nice and hot. Pick up some easy solder, which is our whole technique today. This is what we did. And I am actually just going to put them right onto the edge. I want to keep them low. Keep it right there. And elbows on the table. Nice steady arm. I've got my, you're going to start loving this locking pliers. Again, 95% of my heat is onto my bezel, and look how this is hovering above until I see that red enough, and then see, I'm going to drop it. That's good to go. See that little puddle? Hold, hold, hold. And now I've got the top of my piece. I'm going to put this in the pickle, and I'm going to liver of sulfur this piece, and you are going to see me talk about glue. Okay, you guys, I put together the top of this. I pickled it, cleaned it up like I showed you, put liver of sulfur on here, and now it's even going to be a little trickier to figure out which way it goes in. So when I have these type of prongs, I'm just going to pull them out a little bit. It's always easier if you could pull it out. And then I'm just going to look and see if I can find a way to match it. So when I do get this, nope, that's not going to match. Ah, there we go. Let me see if it's for real. No, that one's not really for real. So, you know, this is, you just really have to, there's no way really there we go. There's no way really to make sure everything is marked. So what I do, this is gonna look beautiful, but no matter how tight you feel like the fit is, believe me, your piece, when it hangs horizontally, will find a way to work out. There's no way, unless I brought these all the way down to the end and caged them in, which is a whole other chapter. This could absolutely be caged in. There's no way really to have this as a permanent stay as the bezel. It'll work its way out. So what I do, I'm gonna pull it out. It's good that it's a nice tight fit. I can get it out though, so that's good. I'm gonna try to keep as close to what I can. And this is actually an E6000. This is a jeweler's glue. If you're gonna use glue in jewelry, which, you know, it always says that it's banned and it's taboo and never use glue. Truthfully, I've seen so many jewelers use E6000 because your piece is never gonna come out. When you're in the business of doing repairs, you're always repairing jewelry. So why not? So with this piece also, what I love about it is if you do put a little bit of glue in the base of it, it's really dries like a rubber cement. So you have a lot of, you know, if your piece is bumped, it has a lot of bounce in there. If I have to take this out for a repair, as long as I can break the seal, it easily comes apart. So it's a glue that holds so permanently, but it doesn't damage your piece if you have to take it apart. What you hate in jewelry repair, if you have to do a jewelry repair and your piece is glued with the super glue, you're never gonna be able to, you know, if the top of this came off, you'll never be able to do a repair. With E6000, you can. So I think that's why it's called a jeweler's glue. So for me, I wanna make sure the person wearing this glue isn't gonna come out. It is, like I said, it dries like a rubber cement. I kind of put a good amount on. The way that this glue works is that if I have air pockets in here, it's not gonna have as good of a seal. You don't wanna get it onto your stone. Ooh, darn, I just realized that I have no idea how this goes back together again. So let me work my way around. There we go, there we go. Easy. So I knew I had a nice big bezel on here, so I have it nice and tight. I don't have to worry about it coming out along the sides. I really just want it glued right across the top. So it's not, I didn't put on enough where it's coming across the sides. I pushed it on tight so I can take out all those air pockets. This is gonna be like an hour dry. So I'm just gonna let that piece dry and you'll end up with a piece like this, and there's no way that it's coming apart. So that'll just sit here till I get in tomorrow. So there you go, there's your couple pieces. This is the finish of Bezels Expanded. You guys got to see some, you know, so practice with just getting deeper into your work and being more careful about things on this time, and just start exploring. Don't be afraid to explore. I wanna see things happen. All right, we'll see you next time. Hey you guys, thanks for joining me for Bezels Expanded. You guys got to work with a lot of cool stones, unusual materials. So this actually gave you a chance to get deeper into the whole soldering experience. You know, I hope you learned a lot more through just different ways to hold your tools and, you know, expand into things in layers. So with this course, you guys are able just to build in layers and get back in and not be afraid of soldering on top of soldering. So please get in your studio 2 to 3 times a week and just try out different things. Don't be afraid. Oh my gosh, there's a lot of different styles, a lot of different stones. Here I did a piece with the same technique and is super big, and this is the Bezels Expanded with the wire. So this is all about layering up and layering bezels together, and just find different ways. It's gonna be really fun to see what you do. Thank you so much for joining me. I will see you soon, and wait till you see what's next on the plate. But for now, focus, get in there, and only think about this. This is your only time that you will have to really work in a group on this subject. So it's gonna be really fun. We'll see you soon.